It's day 2 already of the Centre Court MBA Festival, and with my co-host John Byrne at Poets and Quants, we were just saying we are so fortunate to do what we do, to sit down with extraordinary individuals, senior leaders of admissions, of career services, to look at the MBA current trends, the job market opportunities, this transformational experience. You can discover the world, you can discover yourself, and the best version of you. We had some great sessions on day 1, and you can find all of those on the various social channels, YouTube, Facebook. And today we've got another fantastic mix of the leading international and US business schools. Now, I mentioned discovering the world, and that's exactly what we're going to do for the next 45 minutes. It's always a pleasure to welcome to Centre Court Paula Amorin. Paula is the MBA Admissions Director at the IESE Business School in Barcelona. That's that spectacular view that you see behind her. Joining us from Hong Kong and late in the evening, Mercy Liu. Mercy is the Assistant Director for Admissions at the MBA program at HKU. And coming in from Paris, and again, another spectacular campus, Jean Destom, who is the Associate Director of Recruitment for the MBA program. Welcome, all three of you. Thank you for being with us. And perhaps, Paula, we can just start with IESE, a school that you know so well as both a student and now as the admissions director. Tell us a little bit about the school, and not just that Barcelona location, but perhaps the mission and the values of IESE that are so distinct.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, and thank you for having me again.
Always.
Yes, and you always know how to start, because I always like to start talking about IESE with talking about the mission, because as you said, I'm an alumna myself, and when I was researching my MBAs, this is what made me fall in love with IESE, or think I could fall in love with IESE, right? Because as candidates, it's always in the imaginary field. But I was lucky enough to come to IESE as a student and find out that everything that I was expecting was true. And IESE has this mission of making the world a better place through forming leaders that would be ethical, responsible, with this ultimate spirit of service, which is just like a very intense form of collaboration, right? It's putting others in front of yourself and your own benefit. And IESE has this mission very central to everything that we do, and also some underlying values of ethics, professional excellence, and the spirit of service. And you can see that the professional excellence comes also in the form of academic rigor. So yes, it does use the case method, and this means that we expect students to arrive very prepared and having discussed the case with their classmates and prepared it themselves alone. And through the case discussions, this is also how we sort of channel this humanistic approach to business, right? So it's also a form of delivering on the mission of forming leaders that would be responsible, hopefully, in the future.
Right. Now, HBS leaned in with the creation of the school. You mentioned the case method that's very much at the heart of the program, but it's also that blend of modernity and everything that Barcelona brings as such a dynamic backdrop, right?
Yes, definitely. And we have integrated parts of the course, especially in the second year, because IESE has the first year with the mandatory courses and the second year with the electives. And there are some of the electives that are integrated with this tech, startup world, technology. So there are some electives that students can work together with local startups, technology centers. So we get to experience the city as well.
Well, I guess mixing, Mercy, the best of the old and the best of the new. HKU, of course, a prestigious academic institution, and the business school within that. So tell us a little bit about your perspective from Hong Kong.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having us on this wonderful panel. And speaking of Hong Kong, even though originally I'm not from Hong Kong, but I've been living in this city for a very long time, and I'm very happy to have called it my home for the past decades. And before we talk about the university, actually, if you look at our program, we always say learn business where business is. So as my fellow panelists, like really having the business school located in one of the premium business centers, not just in the region, but also in the world, really matters the learning experience for our students. So having been located in Hong Kong as a university, as a business school, we definitely have benefit a lot from that, meaning that the access to the business world, to the industries, to the different corporate, I think that really set a really sound foundation for our business students, no matter which program they're looking at. As a university, so as I said, the University of Hong Kong is actually the first higher education institution in Hong Kong, and we're also the oldest university here. And our virtue or the motto is sapiencia virtue, so meaning wisdom and virtue, I believe, in English. So that really tells a lot about the culture of the university. Is very similar to Paula has said. It's really about wisdom, of course, but also virtue. Like, what are you having the integrity to lead, and not just as in business, but in general, how you practice your life. So we really want to bring that motto into the University of Hong Kong students. As a business school, we are very strategic located, and we definitely see the unique point of in Hong Kong as a gateway to Greater China area, as a gateway to Asia. So our school really strive to be a influential business school in this region, but with the reach and positive impact on the locally, also regionally, as well as internationally. And that really translates to our mission as well, which is to, first of all, provide the world-leading education, the quality education to our students, and also really be innovative about research that will drive impact practitioners in the business world. And last but not least, really nurture our students to really make positive impact and change to the field that they will be practicing. So I would say I've been feeling very proud to be part of this, and really to see how that being executed every single day from all aspects, from the program, from the school, from the university.
Right. Well, we started by saying the MBA is this extraordinary opportunity to discover the world. And thank you for such a great introduction to HKU. Now, Emily discovered Paris, at least if you followed the Netflix series. And I'm still waiting for Emily to take a course at HEC Paris. Jean, that would be a memorable moment. It's a school that's over 140 years old. It's like the who's who of French business. Tell us about HEC Paris and what you love about it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much, Matt, for this opportunity. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jeanne. I'm from France. I'm calling in from Paris today. I'm the Associate Director for Recruitment for the MBA program at HEC Paris. And yes, as you said, I think HEC Paris is one of the top business schools. We're located in France, near Paris, near Versailles. Actually, if you've heard of the castle of Louis XIV, it's not too far. It's like 10 minutes drive away from our campus. We have a long tradition of excellence. Our school was founded in 1881, which means in terms of alumni network, we have helped to build leaders through generations and generations. When it comes to our mission, we love to say that we want to build leaders with the competence and courage to change the world. What's probably noticeable about our school is that we have a large green campus, which is amazing, with on-campus housing, a great campus life. And we are at the same time located just within a big cluster called Paris-Saclay, which is like the heart of innovation in France. So just next to HEC, you'll find a top engineering school of France, a lot of research center clusters. We even have like 3 research centers at HEC around impact, AI, sustainability, entrepreneurship, and they're really embedded in the curriculum. So yes, that was just a little teaser of what we can discuss after.
And I think all 3 of you have given a little teaser. I would like later in the panel to look at the ROI of going to business school, to one of the world's top MBA programs like each of yours, but going beyond dollars and thinking about some of those personal, you've talked about, ethics and responsibility. You've talked about wisdom and virtue. And you just mentioned, Jeanne, the idea of confidence and courage, and how these intangible aspects are so much part of the experience. Now, US business schools often say, yeah, we're very international, but it strikes me that for all three of you, is that something, when we look at the current class profile, Paula, at IESE, and you get there, and it's like, no, okay, now this is really international. So what does the current class look like?
So the current class 2016, that started a month ago, and I was with them on campus yesterday, and everyone is already very excited. So we have welcomed 442 students. So we have grown the class. We have 88% of people coming from outside of Spain. And I think that what makes ESA very interesting, to say the least, is that we have a very balanced split across the different regions of the world, right? So, okay, the 88 is very generic, right? But then if you go into the regions, you would find 35% of people coming from the Americas, another 30% coming from Asia, and 35% coming from EMEA, right? So I think that, and you don't have a huge majority of one unique nationality, right? So the biggest nationality is Spain. So in this class, out of 442, we have 55 Spanish, and then 50 Americans, 48 Indians, 40 Brazilians, 30 Chileans, 30 Mexicans. Yes, so
you
I followed
you
the
have
class
all of
very
those numbers
close.
in your head, right?
I cannot say how many times I looked at that table, because it's a special class, because we've grown the class. So like, we were all very emotional attached to the recruiting cycle last year. So you can see that it's very well represented, all regions of the world. We're obviously always trying to increase certain regions that tend to be underrepresented, like Africa, that we have been able to consistently grow through the years. But I think that this is especially important. Again, I'm going to be talking a lot about the case method, but the diversity that we bring to the cohort is also very important, because we really leverage on people's diversity, right? People are not there with all their backgrounds and baggage just locked in their backpacks, right? They are actually bringing this out and sharing in the classroom and sharing in the team discussions in the final project. So it's a very active participation and exchange, especially where you are learning. Yes, you are learning the content, and it's obviously very important. But I think that the most special part of an international MBA is this cultural exchange that you get from meeting people that you wouldn't be meeting if you were just climbing the corporate ladder in your current company and in your country, right? So I think that Europe also provides this central, like central geographic place in the world where it tends to be a bit easier for everyone to just meet here. So I definitely think that this is something that makes it easier, and that we are able to leverage a lot on the internationality of our students with the case method.
Right. And that diversity, both in the classroom discussions, but everything that you get to do outside. Now, Mercy, you described HKU as this wonderful gateway to both mainland China, to the rest of Asia. Is that something that you see in the diversity of your students, that the MBA with HKU was a great way to be able to explore, a region that has seen phenomenal growth in the last 35 to 40 years?
Absolutely. I think Hong Kong, first of all, has been known as, where the East meet West. And we are very proud to still carry that crown in many ways. And I think definitely I've talked to some of our students, and that's one of the things they are talking about too. Like, even they come from, cosmopolitans like Tokyo, like Seoul or like somewhere else in Europe, London and all these places, but they still see that when they're in Hong Kong, the international exposure of these two sides of the culture is actually mingling from a culture perspective, from a business perspective, from how people actually carry themselves even professionally at the workplace. So that is a quite unique experience I think they will get when they're studying business in Hong Kong. In terms of the class profile, I think we're a little bit different in a way that for our full-time program, it's a very small class size, which we can definitely elaborate a little bit more. If you look at both our full-time program, every year we do take similar numbers in terms of maybe around 400 MBA students, but for full-time students, it's only about 45 to 50 each batch. So you can imagine it's a very close-knit experience for the students. But even within that around 40 to 50 people, for the example, the entering class, we actually have 14 regions or countries represented. All the way from the countries you can name of within Asia, from Southeast Asia to India to North Asia like Japan and Korea, mainland China, of course, but also people coming from, so for example, Bulgaria, from other places like the UK, the US, Canada. So it's a very interesting cohort, which more than 95% of them are actually not from Hong Kong locally. And even on top of that, I think it's not just about diversity as where they're coming from, but also if you look at their education background, we have Chinese who have studied abroad in the US, in Canada. We have Koreans who have actually worked in ASEAN. And we also have one Bulgarian student who speaks fluent Mandarin, and he sometimes make me feel like you're more Chinese than I am. So it's very interesting when you have this group of people in the classroom. And of course, they come from very different industries. They come from even within the same industry, they're coming from very different functions. We have students from marketing and branding perspectives. And she was telling me that there were 5 of them actually started this marketing club, but you realize that none of them are working the same thing within marketing. So I think that diversity in terms of course, the cultural background, the professional background, and walks of life really make this experience very exciting, especially if they have to spend a lot of time together.
Right. Jeanne, I guess one other element for that diversity is also that the MBA class that's part of a bigger business school, a grande école, as the French describe it, where they also have the early career masters in management students. You've got exec MBA students. So how that benefits, and perhaps then from the admissions perspective, is a global mindset for such an international school something that you really look for in the candidates coming to the MBA program?
Yes, we definitely try to maximize the diversity in our cohort when we recruit the students. Definitely, we're really having a holistic approach when we look at profiles of applicants. We will value if they have a double culture, if they worked abroad, studied abroad. And this is also like really a strength of coming to do an MBA at HEC Paris. You have at the same time the ranking, the value, the recognition of one of the oldest French business institutions, and also a very one of the most diverse MBA program that you can find. So at HEC, the class size, if I'm talking a bit about the class profile, the class size, we welcome between 250 and 300 participants per year. This is split between 2 intakes, so they can start in September or in January. So we recently welcomed the September cohort, and we're really impressed with the quality. We welcome 169 participants. 94% are international, all regions represented. Usually in the year, out of the 250 participants, we have like over 50 different nationalities. So that's definitely this strong, like diverse element in their nationalities. But also, as Mercy mentioned, we really value the diversity in terms of academic backgrounds and professional backgrounds. We're really happy to welcome a traditional profiles. For example, in the class that just started a couple of weeks ago, we have Charles, who was a French boat captain, and he has been on cargoes as a chief officer all around the world. We have Lena Guérin, who's an Olympian. She played in the women French rugby team. We have Sue Pawish, who's like an airplane pilot from Thailand, and many more. So we really value international diversity. But what I'm trying to say is we also value professional backgrounds and try to maximize diversity in the class. And obviously that blends in well with our other programs, to come back to your question, because our students of the MBA can meet up with the master degree, executive MBA, PhD through various certificates that will be industry oriented, for example.
So you all attract ambitious, talented, open-minded individuals. Paolo, to come back to the case method, beyond GMAT and GRE test scores or GPA, you're going to cold call someone in a classroom. So as the admissions team are thinking about each candidate, are you thinking about how they will then be able to contribute, the insights, the voice of confidence so beyond test scores, how they might then perform in that case study environment?
Yes, yeah. So this is definitely something that we are trying to gauge during the application process, right? Which can be quite difficult if you go just for the super concrete, right, information that you have. So in the admissions team, we have a very high touch process. So we always encourage candidates to try to reach out to us in the admissions team to have an info interview, participating in the events, regional events, because we want to get to know people. I'm not going to say soft skills, but things that go beyond the very hard data, right? We want to see how you communicate, what are your strengths, right? Because we also know that, yes, someone that is very outspoken, someone that is a native speaker, they do have some advantage in the case methods because, part of the job they already bring naturally. But even if you are an extrovert, which I've always considered I am, I still struggled in the beginning, right, of the case methods, because it is very intimidating, right? Like to raise your hand before 70 other brilliant people at the risk of sounding a bit dumb or saying something wrong. It's very scary, right? So we're not only judging that, right? Like, okay, if this person would talk very confidently, because we also know that there are cultural nuances and differences. Some nationalities feel much more confident and comfortable with speaking in front of others because they also had the practice in their countries, in their universities, and this is not the case for everyone. But we're also assessing how they can contribute in other aspects, right? So the case method, yes, it is, class participation is key. If you are very, very shy and you never say anything in class, at some point, the professor will either cold call you or invite you for like a meeting, an individual meeting, to try to encourage you to talk more. I've been in that position, believe it or not. But as we have the teams, right? And the teams are also built to be very international, very diverse. We have a whole algorithm and a big Excel where we mix people coming from bachelors of science, of social, right? Functional areas, sectors. The GMAT is also considered, so we want very diverse and balanced teams. So we are also seeing if the person can contribute in this context, right? Because you do have people that in the larger group feel less comfortable, but in a smaller group, right, in the team context, can be very, very helpful and very active, right? You have people that are very good with numbers, or like very, very analytical. Like maybe they can be even better when they're explaining this to just another teammate, right? On a closer and more intimate environment. So we are also assessing that in the process, right? And then outside of the team in the class environment, how else they could contribute to the community, right? So are they really passionate about a certain topic and they could be leading one of the student clubs, right? Have they had experience in organizing events? We're very big on conferences, and the conferences are getting bigger and bigger. So if they have experience with that, maybe this can also be one of the ways that they could contribute, right? So yes, we do go beyond academics, test scores, and like the professional progression themselves. And we try to, you know, especially because many of us, I'm not the only alumni in the team, right? My team is made of many alumni. So we've all been at ESA, we've all experienced the ESA MBA, we all sort of know what it takes. So we try to picture if that person is sort of close to us or our classmates or teammates, right? And trying to put them in certain situations that we know are very ESA typical and see if they could succeed or not.
I guess, Mercy, from what Paula's describing, you know, to project yourself, imagine yourself becoming a member of this community, this MBA class, and you know, they might say, oh, well, you know, for maybe a banker, consultant, they've been thinking about business school, but other candidates, it can be intimidating. How do you like to sort of present HKU and the idea that it is open to anyone? You don't have to have studied business at undergrad or a particular course. You know, so how do you like to encourage people to imagine themselves a member of your community?
That's a great question, Matt. I think first of all, I think different channels, right? If let's say they haven't really got the opportunity to connect with us personally, if they're really looking at the digital site, we actually do constantly to present stories of alumni or current students who actually don't come from the traditional corporate world. We actually, for example, one of a really success story from the graduating batch, he was a medical researcher in New York. But now he's actually going into medical related investment with a venture capital firm. And I think that those kind of stories really give people from different backgrounds at least getting to know that, you know what, there are people who actually got admitted to this program and they actually really share their story, what happened to them along the process. I think that's really the first thing we really have to get the candidates to know, that yes, things like this happen. But of course, once they really have this gauge of bravery to really connect with the team and say, you know what, let's talk. I think then the one thing they really will take away from this whole admission process by working with our team, I think very similar to Paula said, we're just very passionate to really get to know who you are. And if you actually first of all think that this is a good move for you, you are doing this for the right reasons, we want to hear it out. And we want to hear where you want to go by making this quite big investment of your time, financially, the opportunity cost, and the whole thing of moving to a very different place, probably you have never been to, right? These are such big decisions. So we want to make sure that during the process, they interact with us even before they become our students is well catered in terms of, you know, let's hear your story. And let's share a bit more of, whether we have similar cases, or if not, what are the resources available that still will make this happen to you. So I think that is one really important thing, that to stay personal, to stay humane about this process, really understand there are concerns. They might need a little push. Just, you know, they want to do it, but you may need a little bit more supportive, a motivational approach for them to really believe in themselves that they can actually do it. So I think that's really one of the although other important things on top of the solid, the really more objective stories that you can tell, but having that very personal interaction even from the very beginning of the admissions process.
Right, and all three of you are focused on admitting candidates for all the right reasons rather than, you know, rejecting them. Jeanne, with the decision that HEC has for many years offered the 16-month program format, and now it will also be offered, you've been trialing the shorter 12-month version. So are you also looking for candidates that can handle that intensity? Because, you know, a year, 16 months, you're throwing them so many opportunities. There's a lot of classwork. So it's to ensure that they, you know, will really thrive and flourish in that intense environment.
Yeah, sure. So when we review candidates' application, the final step of the application will be meeting up with our alumni So that's a very interesting step because it's the perfect occasion for applicants to really discuss with former students of the school and really see themselves if they think it's a fit and if they like the vibe of the school. But it's also a perfect way for us to assess their soft skills and their motivation. So there's an opportunity there to discuss really what they want to do and answer their questions. So just to clarify on the 12 months option versus the 16 months option, our students can do that if they decide to start for the January intake. It has actually always been a case that for students who start in January, they can shorten a bit the program by condensing a few options if they wanted. Now we've just like made it official and made it more clear in terms of visibility. And our students don't have to decide now. We offer a strong MBA curriculum that is customizable because we really want this personal approach. That's the strength of having like a medium-sized class. And then students can decide on the way if they want to do 12 months, the 16 months, or anywhere in between by customizing and choosing the right option. So yes, an MBA program, whether it is 12 or 16 months or anywhere in between, is very intense. There's a lot of work, but that's really what our students are looking for. The students that we recruit are high achiever. They're looking for challenge. They want to boost their career. They want to potentially transform their career. I think that's also a big strength of HEC, is really helping and accompanying students that are looking to transform, pivot their career. When you look at our results in terms of career transformation, we often talk about like the triple jump, people changing function, sector, location. We always about like 35%, 39%, it depends each year. On the triple jump, when you look at the double jump, we're closer to 70%. So we are already taking smart people that are looking for challenge, that are looking to progress and advance, and we help them with a personal approach and a customizable curriculum. And if they decide to stay on the 16 months program, it's still very busy and challenging.
Well, of course, Paris just hosted a remarkable Olympic Games. There was some incredible triple jump athletes in the stadium and clearly on your program as well. Paula, if I had said to you, oh, Paula, I'm deeply ethical. I have a very strong moral compass. I believe that I'm a responsible leader. And you say, well, okay, but perhaps actions speak louder than words. Is that where a recommender can then lean in this process, to share the values of an individual? How do you assess somebody's ethics or the sense of being a responsible business leader?
Wow, that's a very good question. Also a very hard one to answer in practice, right? So definitely the recommenders can be a good way to tackle that, especially because it's the only external voice in the application. So everything else has been done by the candidate. So the recommendation letter tends to be very important because it's almost a fact check. Our consistency check to see if the tone and the narrative that the candidate has created and showed in the application really makes sense. So recommendation letter is very important. So I would highly recommend candidates to choose well their recommenders, not to write their recommendation letters, of course, but to align with their recommender what like. You don't even have to align what exactly they're going to write, but maybe refresh their memories, of projects that you've worked together with, special contributions that you've made with this angle, right? So I think that each school has sort of certain lenses that we are looking at our candidates with. So I think it's interesting that the candidates try to follow the perspectives and the angle that the school would like to see. And in our case, ethics, social responsibility is very important, and it can come in the form of, and this is something that we do in the interview, tell me about a time when. So practicing tell me about a time when questions are very important, right? And to have good stories to tell on those perspectives. You have other forms to show ethics. and this social responsibility, for example, in the form of volunteering. So if you have done extracurricular activities, this is something that you can put in your CV. And in the essay application, we have an optional essay that it's an open-ended essay, right? So if the candidate really feels that they have something to share, the question is literally this. If you feel that there's something about your profile that you haven't had the opportunity to share during your application, please share with us, right? So if they have a nice story to tell that sort of embodied this ethical spirit, this could be a good opportunity, right? And I'm just answering the ethics question. It can have other examples that would also align well with the essay, right? After they've done a good research and talked to enough people from the community, they would know what's relevant for ESA and also to the other schools, right? So that's why doing a good research is also very important.
So we have the example of tell me about a time when, but Mercy, perhaps you're also asking in the application, tell me about your future, because understandably, you know, the role that business school, the MBA will play. Does a candidate need to know that 2 years from now they'll be working in this job title in this company? I mean, that's the whole idea of the MBA, the opportunity to explore, as Jeanne was describing at HEC Paris. So what are you looking to understand about the MBA and perhaps their post-MBA career goals?
I guess I'll probably go first. So I think, first of all, before we talk about the future, we actually do spend some time to understanding the present of the candidate first, because we believe that there must be some reasons about your current professional or personal stage that make you feel like an MBA in some way will help you to take you to somewhere else, whether it's functional, whether it's position-wise, whether it's location-wise. So really, before we ask that question of the future, we really want to make sure that they can tell us a solid, true stories about themselves at what's going on now. Neither what happened in the past, that we have seen people who come from and saying, "Oh, I've been thinking about this for 2-3 years." Then really, why now, right? So I think really the questions about when, where, why, about this current situation of the candidates really matters a lot before we even are thinking about where you want to go next. And then we do believe that be able to talk about the future is something very important. You don't have to really have a very concrete idea. Sometimes we have people who are really driven and clear of where they want to go. That is great. But in the same time, the drawback of that is you never know what's going to happen during this 1-year program.
Sure.
You wouldn't know who you're going to meet that actually give you this brilliant idea and inspiration you never thought, no one told you before. But it actually fit perfectly to your potential and what you're really good at. So it's great that you have a direction, but you don't necessarily have a solid concrete plan. I want to be here and there. But it will be helpful to really decipher on, let's take a step back. What you really love doing. What you feel the most, achieved when we are in certain roles or some of the tasks. So then that really helps us to understand, okay, then let's talk about where you can go next. For those candidates who might actually not have a really concrete idea yet, that's actually okay. But again, most importantly is you keep your options and mind open. Open to opportunities, open to challenges, open to new ideas, and see how it goes. But of course, it will matter going back to the present. It's okay that you don't know about the future. You come here to figure it out, but let us know who you are so that we can help you to figure things out together with the resources and platforms that are available at the school, at the program. So I think that really matters, that when the candidates really explain this in details during the admissions interview, be prepared to be your true self, be prepared to really tell us your motivation, how you can contribute, and how we can help you. That really helps us to find the right fit for the program.
Got it. We were saying earlier, Jeanne, that HEC Paris has been educating business leaders for 143 years. And typically, I suppose the average might be 6 or 7 years of professional experience coming into the HEC Paris MBA. And the candidates saying, oh, my job title, it doesn't say anything about leadership, and yet this leadership potential, they want to see that. So how do you advise candidates, in sharing their story, to look for different ways in different chapters of their life to illustrate times when they've had an opportunity to be a leader?
Yes, of course. But what we're looking more in the application and the profiles and when they share, it's more the leadership potential. So yes, at the HEC, they have on average 6-7 years work experience, 29, 30 years old. And we also have younger applicants from 2 to 3 years work experience. So we know that at that stage of their career, they might not have been a manager. Maybe they never led a project fully on their own, even though at their level, it could be in student clubs, it could be in different associations, it could be a sub-part of a project that they led, and they can detail that and share explanations so that we can kind of see their leadership potential. And the most important is that most of our students, when they pick HEC to come study an MBA, it's because they want to develop that leadership potential. So we have plenty of things in our program to really help them develop those skills. For example, I can just name a few of those opportunities. For example, we have a great outdoor leadership seminar. So it's military mentors who would come to our campus and organize a 3-day seminar for our students based around leadership activities. So the activities will be very challenging. It could be like you have to lead your group into building a raft to cross a lake, or you have to climb a really high level building. And maybe in your group, there's someone who's afraid of height, afraid of waters, and you have to be the leader in leading the group. And the group will be super diverse, as we mentioned before. Maybe in your group, you'll have a doctor, a lawyer, a finance person, a marketing person, a professor, and maybe a construction engineer. But maybe if you're the one to lead the group, even though your background is history or art, you have to use the skills of the engineer without letting them take the leadership, etc. So a lot of situation, also kind of crisis management, and it's amazing. All our alumni that I meet, they remember this leadership seminar, they learn so much. So we really believe that giving you chances to develop your leadership skills in action, like leadership is really something that you learn outside of the class. So this is a good example. We also, as you know, host the MBA tournament every year. So the Olympics of the MBA, where we welcome 1,500 students from top MBA program to our campus for a huge tournament of 3 days, a huge budget to manage. And our students organize this event, and it's really interesting and fun at the same time. We also have the executive committee. It's a mentorship program within our MBA where some of our students are meeting with a high-level industrial person who will share with them about their experience, the signing on disclosure agreement, etc. So a lot of opportunity to develop that leadership potential that we try to assess through the CV, the essays, and of course the interviews with alumni that I mentioned before.
Right. I'm thinking of alumni because all 3 schools, you offer this extraordinary transformational journey. If I was to sit down with alumni from your school, they perhaps could no doubt talk about the successful careers that they've enjoyed and the financial rewards and returns. But Paula, if I asked a couple of IESE graduates, what was the highlight of this experience? Would it be more personal? What sort of things do you think they would say?
I think it would be a lot on the people that they meet. I think that the different sets, as I said, people coming from different backgrounds, and also the level of exposure that you have. I'm gonna change the word exposure to connection, right? I think that the level of the connection that you build with people that are very different from you is very intense, right? I think that they would also mention the level of the transformation that they've gone through, right? I think that the essay, I've mentioned in the beginning that it's very academic rigorous, so it's putting a lot of pressure during like day 5. I'm not gonna say day 1, but day 5, when it already starts with the communication course and everything, and then the career prep, and then like the social anxiety of having to meet everyone and build these connections, right? Like, so it is a lot of pressure, and we demand attendance, punctuality, right? You have to come to class, you have to be prepared, you have to participate. So it's a lot of haves in your MBA experience, right? But I think it is through this very intense and and pressured environment that you really build resilience and stamina and this feeling of being capable of everything, right? So I would say that this is what alumni would remember the most.
Right. And Mercy, perhaps someone that's traveled thousands of miles for this Asia experience at HKU. Wow, I did it. We went through the experience. What sort of things might they share?
I think definitely what echoes what Paula said, the diversity of the class of interaction. And I think also for our community, we really value collaborative success. Because to be honest, when you are thinking about MBA, you are driven and self-motivated enough. But being that is not enough for become a business leader. You really have to be able to unleash other people's potential, make sure that your team, your organization will success. And that really, the collaborative success really connect people. So that's why my job becomes easier whenever I reach out to our alumni. They are just willing to come back and share, whether from a missions perspective or even whether they're actually got invited by our faculty to share about what they have been doing. If they're working in AI for investment, they actually got invited to talk at investment classes. So I think that number one is something definitely on top of the list, and I have been hearing that across the world. I think second would be the personalized support, because our full-time program is so small, 50 people every year. That's why really everyone can get very personal attention from the entire MBA office, all the way from the program team, so they know exactly why we're taking these kind of classes. The career services will have a fully dedicated team only working with full-time careers, so we'll have a proper career curriculum, and they just really know the students so well, and sometimes too well. I think like, oh, that's really, you know me probably better than I do. But I think that's the point. I think they really remember how they were treating on an individual level. I think that also matters to this younger generations. Like, it's no longer about a very generic experience. It's really about kind of experience I will be getting for myself. So I think that personalized attention, support, resources will be really something that our alumni will highlight. The last thing I would say is the exposure, because in the beginning, I mentioned how our business school really wants to nurture leaders to make local, regional, and international impact. So that actually really been incorporated into our curriculum as well. So our student, of course, the teaching style, the cases that we use, a lot of them are more Asian focused. And then they also have this track that we actually do partner with some other schools in the US, in the UK, and in mainland China, that they actually are part of the one-year program. So they technically get exposure not just to Hong Kong as an international city, the business center, but also another place if they are also wanting adding another element into their profile. On top of that, we have cultural experiences. We take students for career tracks, even to Middle East. We actually took students to Dubai last year. So all of these things happening in 1 year really make them to think things differently. And a lot of them still remember how that actually really changed them along the way as they become managers, as they become leaders, senior executives in their organizations.
Right. I was fortunate earlier this year, Jeanne, to interview the former CEO and now chairman of L'Oréal, who an HEC graduate. He's had a remarkable career, but he's still so incredibly enthusiastic about the school. I think he's on the board and volunteers his time, thinking, wow, 40, 50 years ago, everything you've done. Is that typical? This sense of a community and a bond that it creates with the school that never leaves you?
Yes, I think so. Our alumni network is very well connected. So you just mentioned Jean-Paul Lagon. He's coming back to the school. I mean, it's on the board of HEC, and he's coming to the school to do also inspirational speeches to our students. Each year at the graduation ceremony, we have a really high-level key speaker who's from the alumni network. It's always very inspiring and impressive, and also to see how they really want to come back and inspire the new generation of graduates from HEC. What helps in our MBA is the fact that I mentioned we have around 250 students per year. It's at the same time big enough so that you have a really large network with diverse profiles. So at the same time, you can be inspired by very different profiles, but also find some people with whom you can really connect and say, okay, we want to launch a project together, or I want to work in the company you worked before. So it's important to have quite a big network. but it's also small enough so that you get to know everyone. With the specialization, the electives, all the student clubs, all the fun events, and the fact that we have a very strong campus life, because 70% of our students live on our campus, that really helps to create like lifelong connection. Our alumni remain friends, stay together. The alumni network is very active. Just to give an example, so one of the biggest locations for alumni of HEC Paris will be in the UK, in London. 2 years ago, we bought a new like house downtown London to be kind of this alumni house in UK, which animate the network. The network in the UK will be subdivided in many clubs. They host a winter gala, a summer party, etc. Of course, we have an alumni house in Paris. We have various offices. So we really try to keep, we really not try, like we animate the network, and it's kind of easy because the students are coming back every year. We have reunion on our campus. It's one of, again, the leadership events that the current class organize. They organize reunion for previous intakes, previous classes. So yes, the fact that I think, again, due to the class size, we have a really collaborative environment, and our students help each other out. A lot of them will find internships, full-time jobs, thanks to each other, thanks to recent alumni. So that is a really nice environment, I think, to be studying at, and it's something that you should look for when you pick your school. Is like, check the vibe. Do you align with that? And for that, there's no better way than book a call with one of our team member. Book a call with the students. Reach out. Check alumni profile on LinkedIn. I think it's really important to find a place where you feel good.
Well, we talk about everything that you pack into the experiences in Barcelona, in Hong Kong, and in Julian-Josas in a year or 2 years. Look at how much we packed in the last 45, 50 minutes. Your energy, you're obviously, the excitement that you have for your schools, it jumps off the screen. And I think as a first connection for our viewers, for our global audience, it's a wonderful place to start. I invite all of them, of course, to reach out to your teams, use the websites, the info sessions, everything that you have available for them to explore their next exciting international MBA advantage. But Paula and Jan, merci. It was lovely to have you with us for this first session of the day. And I'll be speaking with your colleagues on the incredible career opportunities that the graduates also then enjoy. That's coming up in another 5-10 minutes. But thank you, all three of you.